Many historians consider World War I and World War II as a single war, with a long break in between. The first ended in 1918 and the second started in 1939. In this break, the story happens. Peaky Blinders. After the First World War and moving toward the Second World War. Peaky Blinders is a period drama. Things are a bit fictionalized and dramatized for sure, but the historical context that the story runs in is true. Thomas Shelby shows us the fate of all the soldiers who survived the First World War, the ones who, although came back but were disturbed all the things they had faced in the war, the way their mental state was and the way the society left them to their fate.
Daddy! We're all home in England. You're not in France. You're not an artillery show, Danny. You're a man.
This made it challenging for many of them to survive. Thomas Shelby was also such a working-class individual, whom war had turned into a godless, cold-hearted, fearless, anti-authority maniac. He started to question his feelings and his faith. This was natural. The place they came from, every day, they were ordered to mass murder there. The other side was following similar orders. War was so mechanized as if the battle was also between machines and man as well. Such an uneven battle was never seen before. There was no industrialized killing before, at this level. First World War is the first mechanized slaughter of men, and after coming from such a place to leave them at their fate as if nothing happened and to expect that everyone will get back to their lives, and this was a wrong expectation. Lawlessness rose, crimes rose, the disrespect towards authorities and rules increased, and Thomas Shelby also started moving forward in the same direction. He is a criminal, a murderer. Intimidating people is his business.
How many fathers, right? How many sons, yeah? Have you cut, killed, murdered, fucking innocent and guilty to send straight to fucking hell, ain't ya? Just like me!
We can appreciate some of his characteristics, and it is better not to have many other characteristics of him, but the mixture of these characteristics create a contradiction in him. It creates a contrasting conflict in him. The way Cillian Murphy plays this contradiction, he's magnificent. We will talk about Thomas Shelby. We will try to understand his personality. We will observe him together. We will try to understand his contradiction. We will try to feel what is going on in his mind. We will try to understand where he is moving towards.
Nearly got fucking everything!
Number 1. He always plays on the offense. We particularly admire two things in others, or especially in films. The first is selflessness and the second is fearlessness. Whether we have it or not, it feels good to see these in others. In fact, we don't have these. That's why it looks so good on others. That's why we celebrate these people so much. I won't call Thomas Shelby a selfless person, but he was fearless for sure, and this comes from his acceptance of death. Thomas learns that life is fragile. That life is temporary. Today it is, or tomorrow maybe not. He has seen all the flesh and bones in war meat-coated skeleton. Sometimes people come back so close from death in war like it's their second life. Thomas sees his life as extra time given to him. The way he puts personal safety on risk, the way he puts his life on a bet for business deals, he can go to the extremes. He has no fear of death. No matter how hard the situation is, he always tries to stand in the front foot. He doesn't usually bend under pressure.
You did the right thing, John. Now we go on the offensive. We take two of the Changreta pubs. We take them tonight. That's it.
Oh, right. For Christ's sake, why?
Hey?
Why?
Why? Because we fucking can! Because we fucking can! And if we can, we do. And if we lift our heel off their necks now, they'll just come at us.
Sometimes it feels like he is searching for problems instead of solutions. Like, he needs that. From his behavior, it feels like although he has come back from war, but his mind is still stuck there. Osho has rightly said that people will not be able to forgive you if get them rid of all their problems. We do want an answer. But that answer is just an excuse for getting involved in another question. We pray for solutions, but we need problems as well, or how else would we keep ourselves busy? Thomas Shelby's aggressive stance on his business pursuit, the jittery we see in him, and the adamant he is about controlling everything around him shows the same state, a way to keep himself busy. A way to unsee the wounds that he has hidden inside him. Number 2. He is not an open book. Thomas Shelby tries to keep everything together. He is trying to keep his family united, keeping the business going. He himself is trying to climb up the ladder. He wishes everything to go as he plans. But there always comes a problem, and it drags him back. And this affects him mentally. He is crumbling emotionally and psychologically beneath all of that pressure. Thomas knows this, but he doesn't show it to anyone. Thomas Shelby isn't an open book. He hides a lot from his family as well. The time when Inspector Campbell uses him, when the IRA uses him, when Crown uses him still, he shows everyone that the situation is under his control. He is the one who can change things. Which sometimes was not true at all. Thomas realizes that if he has to focus on his ambitions, he has to look beyond from his family's limits. And this means sometimes you just have to trust your instincts and not the opinions of others.
Take the bodies to the city. And another boat. For anyone who wants no more part of this. Because this is how it's gonna be!
Thomas is not just a bond between family members, he also has his family's burden. He had the drive, he was the captain, he was ready to be drowned with the ship. Others may depart, that's why it was important for him to look strong. So that the others remain confident. Thomas hid his medications as well. He was embarrassed about his nightmares. He was still hearing the sound of the tunnel opening. He was embarrassed that he was as traumatized as Arthur. But somehow he had made himself stand up. He is high on alcohol, cigarettes, drugs and power. The way war has ruined him, he somehow has put a lid on all these things within him. This is why he gets irritated when he sees Arthur in the same state.
I haven't got enough on!
Stop it.
The war is done! Shut the door on it! Shut the door on it, like I did.
Usually what we forcefully suppress within ourselves causes us to get irritated at once when we see it in someone else. We don't free ourselves from that thing. But we make ways to avoid thinking about it. And when we see that in others, we also get to see our own vulnerabilities there. That is why we get angry. What you see in others is the reflection of yourself. Number 3. He is the master of his ego. There are 3 main pillars in Shelby family. The ones that hold the family together. It's like a 3-legged stool. These are Thomas, Polly and Arthur. Polly is the heart, Arthur is the body and Thomas is the brain. He is the thinker, strategist. But it's not that Thomas is only intellectually capable. He is not less insane than Arthur, but still, he is not Arthur. Thomas keeps up emotionally as well. But he is not Polly. Thomas is sometimes aggressive and unstable as well. But still, he isn't impulsive. Oswald Mosley described Tommy right, irrational frenzy controlled by reason and self-reflection. He is the master of his ego. He can sometimes swallow his pride. To do things according to his plan, he may bow down. He can pretend to be vulnerable if that makes him win. He can make a deal with people who have betrayed him if it helps. And this is not so common in these people. In powerful people, to show themselves as inferior. Ego and vanity ooze out of their every act. The way these people talk, sit, stand and drink in another level of class. To hurt their ego is like inviting trouble. Each group maintains its status in front of its rivals. But Thomas can look beyond these things for his benefit. Whenever he does deals, or meets someone for the first time, meets his foe, he conducts himself in a precise way. In a calculated way, he doesn't speak unnecessarily. No opinions, no arguing. Just straight facts focused on getting things done.
He's the oldest, you're the thickest. I'm told the boss is called Tommy, and I'm guessing that's you. Because you're looking me up and down like I'm a fucking tart.
I want to know what you want.
He removes all emotion from his face, becomes calm and composed, puts aside all his subjectivity, and presents himself objectively like Lord Buddha. Perhaps Stoic would be more appropriate. Moreover, loosely speaking, Stoics are nothing but Buddhists with attitude. And by doing this he hides his insecurities. He doesn't leave anything to be read on his face. Neither doubt nor worry, nor anger. There is absolute confidence in him. And it's very important. These people came up from the lower strata of society. Where he was from, Thomas knew it well and well. And many a time his enemies, by poking his insecurities, try to break him. Try to show him as inferior. Try to get inside him.
Who ever thought about doing business with fucking gypsy Catholic scum?
Yeah, who'd have thought? Hey, Charlie?
It's not that Thomas doesn't mind such things. Of course, he does. But he doesn't show this on his face. He doesn't bring this in his reaction, and by doing so, he doesn't want to prove that those words had hurt. He doesn't want to give confirmation of his insecurities. He isn't the Buddha, but he manages to pretend. A pretentious Stoic perhaps. Number 4. He is insanely ambitious. Peaky Blinders at first glance feels like a gangster story. On a better glance feels like a family. One that is trying to keep itself stable in the changing world. If we give more attention, we notice a man's changing personality, we see the after effects of war. PTSD is the subtext of this show, and this is all true. It's a gangster story, a family story. We see trauma, but there's another reason beneath all these that runs this story. That is identity. To be more precise, individual identity. To make an identity of your own. The fire that is burning within Thomas Shelby, the madness that makes him drive forward soldier, gangster, businessman, politician, everything that he is trying to do, is not just for the money and the power. What he really wants is to make his identity. To create an individual identity, to make his name, to do something where your name becomes your designation. Where just your name is sufficient, where every identity labeled by the society fades in front of yours, and Thomas thinks exactly like this. What matters more to him is competence, not where they are born.
Always happy to give smart answers to men born better than you.
Man needs to prove he's better than me, rather than show me his birth certificate. See, I don't have one, so they mean very little to me.
But this question always arises in this show: can you really escape where you are from? Can something be done or achieved that stands apart from our background, class, religion, caste, or place? Something that is above all collective identities? When someone says your name, people focus on what you actually do. Can such an individual identity be created? Individual identity means an identity that no one shares with you, something which only you are known for. There is an old relationship between the society and identity. Our collective identities like nationality, religion, caste, class gives us a sense of belonging. It's a psychological address. It doesn't let us feel that we are alone and that there are more people like me, and the identities that society labels us with become hardwired onto us psychologically. Thomas learns this slowly, that the psychological barrier of the class created by society, like Jesse Eden says, steel sheets boundary of class. Thomas cannot break this with money or power. No matter how legitimate he makes his business, high society people won't accept it.
Fucking business will change, but I've learned something in the last few days. Those bastards are worse than us. Politicians, fucking judges, lords and ladies, they're worse than us, and they will never admit us to their palaces, no matter how legitimate we become, because of who we are. Because of who we fucking are, because of where we're fucking from. Isn't that right, Ada?
But still, Thomas keeps on. His ambitions don't end. Charles Bukowski has said, if you want to go, go all the way or don't even start. And Thomas is going all the way. Number 5. He is bad but not evil. If you have watched the complete show, then you may have noticed that, as the story proceeds, we see Thomas Shelby's old characteristics coming back. The Thomas Shelby before the First World War, when he wasn't emotionally dead. When the war hadn't changed him yet, some values of then started coming back to him. The things that he hid inside him start to open up slowly, and all of this starts when Grace enters his life. The name Grace was chosen intentionally because she was a grace to Tommy to open up some locked emotions after war.
It's not a good idea to look at Tommy Shelby the wrong way.
Thomas Shelby is shown as an anti-hero. Anti-heroes magnify our moral ambiguity. It breaks the division we have made between the right and the wrong. Premchand has put this aptly: no one is good or bad. One is good and bad. Well, we know Thomas was bad, but he also stood up for good things. He cared for kids, he wasn't a racist, he had no problems with homosexual people. He sees how broken the system is, from street gangs to the parliament, and he uses it for his selfish motive.
I'm not a traitor to my class. I am just an extreme example of what a working man can achieve.
Good or bad didn't matter to Thomas Shelby anymore after the war. He didn't draw any line between right and wrong, he just keeps on doing what he does. But when he meets Oswald Mosley and understands his intentions, when he smells another war around him, then he starts to separate himself from someone else.
Be called the British Union of Fascists.
Here, he draws a line for himself. Maybe there is good, there is bad, but then there is evil. Thomas, on his own, takes the initiative to provide information to the intelligence department against Oswald Mosley. To stop the rising waves of fascism, Thomas tries to become a good guy from here on. Maybe by standing against Mosley and stopping his evil intentions. By saving Britain from the Second War, he wants to wash away his old sins. A changed man. But there was also another reason for Tommy to stand against Oswald Mosley. And it was Thomas Shelby himself. The fascist movement was also against him and his people. When we think about WW2 and Hitler, the first thing that comes to our mind are the Jews, who were systematically killed. But this was actually for all the minorities like black, gay, gypsy, etc. Thomas was also a gypsy, a Roma gypsy, from his mother's side. Shelby's family and Lee's family were gypsies. The spread of fascism was not only in Germany, there were rallies all over Europe, even in America. There were Nazi rallies in the 1930s where thousands of people gathered in the same thing Oswald Mosley was doing in Britain. Oswald Mosley was a real person, and in Peaky Blinders, Mr. Mosley is a perfect antagonist for a character like Thomas. To break his confidence, the storm that is brewing around Oswald Mosley, the preparation of the Second World War, in an attempt to break that storm by throwing himself inside of it, Thomas finds something larger than himself. In this situation, he feels liberated from the burden of his personal ambitions. He finds himself free from his personal desires and aspirations and gets a better reason to put up his life on the line.